Recently I made a video talking all about the future of the Super Mario Maker series, and of course the super exciting idea of a potential Super Mario 3D Maker came up in that video. What I wasn't expecting though was for so many comments to say, oh, this won't work, this is impossible, Nintendo could never do this, Nintendo shouldn't do this, it wouldn't even be cool, Nintendo won't do this. So in this video I want to talk about Nintendo potentially releasing a Super Mario 3D Maker. Yes, that's right, a game that allows you to make your own 3D Mario levels. First up, we're going to discuss whether or not Nintendo can even make this. Next, we're going to discuss whether or not they should. And lastly, we're going to discuss whether or not they will. Funnily enough, each of those questions has a different answer in my mind. So use the chapters down in the time bar to skip around, and let's get right into it. But first, a word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Galaga Wars. I've been playing a ton of Galaga Wars Plus, which is on Apple Arcade. If you're not familiar, they basically took the original retro shooter gameplay, kept that all the same, but updated everything else. There are now better graphics, you can upgrade your ships, there's specific challenges, and so much more. You can attack through waves of original enemies, including the classics like the bee, butterfly, scorpion, and so many more deadly ones. You can enhance your ship by leveling up your aircraft. In the hangar, you can upgrade your ship, and this is my favorite part, you can unlock new ships that are references to other games, like a Pac-Man ship and a Katamari Damacy ship. I mean, that's so cool. Each ship has 4 abilities that can all be upgraded, and Galaga Wars Plus is on Apple Arcade, meaning there are no ads and no in-app purchases. It's just a genuinely great mobile game. I've been playing it so much recently because you already know I want to unlock that Pac-Man ship, and you can start playing Galaga Wars Plus just like me by using a free month-long trial from Apple Arcade by clicking the link in the description. So go download Galaga Wars Plus today, and thanks to Galaga Wars for sponsoring this video. Now, the first thing we have to talk about is whether or not it's even possible for Nintendo to make a Super Mario 3D Maker. So many of the comments were saying, oh, this isn't even something they could do. And it's true that Mario Maker uses a grid-based system which pretty much exclusively works for 2D games. However, that's not to say that it's impossible to make a 3D game maker. In fact, you got comments that pointed out things such as Roblox, and PlayStation even had a game like this called Dreams, so it's definitely possible to make a 3D game maker on a console. But obviously, the PlayStation is a lot more powerful than the Nintendo Switch. Could something like that run on the Switch? Well, not only can we take a look at something like Fall Guys, which has a brand new level editor which is now available on the Nintendo Switch. Fall Guys maps are really simple though, but you can also play Fortnite Creative Mode on Switch, and even Nintendo themselves made Game Builder Garage, which allowed users to make their own 3D games, so it's clear that it's definitely possible. Of course, we'd have to go into exactly what type of levels people are making, like it would be a lot easier for the Switch to handle making a 3D world type of level rather than making a massive Odyssey style kingdom, but regardless, if The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom can run at a pretty stable 30 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch with a massive open world, incredibly robust physics engine, and all that that game has to offer, then honestly, I don't really foresee a problem here. I think Nintendo's really good at squeezing all the power they can out of their own console. Even if this were to somehow come out on the Switch and not a Switch Pro or Switch 2 with better computing power, it doesn't even matter. It could still happen. So that one was quick and out of the way, but now we gotta discuss, should Nintendo even do this? And this is where it gets a little interesting, because while it's technically possible that Nintendo can do this, it's a little shady on whether or not they should. Let's just look at what Mario Maker has actually done to the 2D Mario franchise so far. It's killed it. Okay, not really. Well, the original Mario Maker came out in, I believe, 2015, and since then we've gotten a port of the original Mario Maker to the 3DS, which took out online level sharing, so that doesn't really count. But we got a full sequel of Mario Maker on the Nintendo Switch. We also, since then, have gotten a port of a 2D Mario game to the Nintendo Switch in the form of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, but we haven't gotten any brand new 2D Mario game since then. We have not gotten a 2D Mario game for over 10 years now. The last one came out in 2012. Keep in mind, 2D Mario before Mario Maker was getting pumped out like almost one every year. There were actually 2 2D Marios within a year when they came out with New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS and New Super Mario Bros. U on the Wii U. It's actually crazy how we went from too many 2D Marios to now virtually none. I mean, hit the subscribe button if you want to see a new 2D Mario bad. These games were getting absolutely cranked out, and of course, yeah, they ended up probably taking a little bit of a break just because people were getting tired tired of these games, but it's been over 10 years. People want a new 2D Mario game, but the problem is with Mario Maker, Nintendo knows now if they want to make another 2D Mario, they can't necessarily just phone it in like they were kind of doing with the new Super Mario Bros. Games. I mean, don't get me wrong, those are great games, but creatively, it's not like they're anything super special there. Mario Maker solidified the fact that Nintendo can no longer do that, because if they make something that someone could just remake in Mario Maker, that's a terrible look for the company and franchise as a whole. However, I don't think that's going to stop them when it comes to 3D Mario Maker, simply because Nintendo has never really phoned in 3D Mario. Even probably the consensus least favorite 3D Mario game, at least home console, not talking about 3D Land, would be 3D World, because it's pretty linear, it's a bit more by the books than other 3D Mario games, but even then, you could not recreate 3D World in any sort of Mario Maker style, because even if we got a 3D Maker, there are new power-ups, new gimmicks, new level exclusive items, new themes, new sub-areas, new everything in almost every single aspect, every single level of that game. 3D Mario is special, it always has been, and I don't think releasing a 3D Mario level editor would take away from the creativity that Nintendo themselves put in these 3D Mario games. So I don't think 3D Mario Maker would stumble into the same pitfall as 2D Mario Maker, which is the mindset of, oh, Nintendo can't make a new 3D Mario because they allow us to make our own 3D Marios, or Nintendo can't make a new 2D Mario just like this because, oh, we can already make a 2D Mario just like this. However, there is something else that needs to be discussed, and that's the fact that making anything in a 3D space is just going to be a lot more difficult than making something in a 2D space. When having to account for a whole nother dimension, there's a lot more opportunities for terrible levels, janky platforming, bad level design choices made by the creators. Now, should that necessarily stop Nintendo? In my opinion, no. I mean, there are a lot of terrible Mario Maker levels, but it's worth it because there are some just absolute bangers in there. The same would be true probably to a higher extent in a 3D Mario Maker. There would be a ton of bad levels, just a bunch of absolute like trash levels with a bunch of just cubes everywhere that you have to randomly jump from. But when you get some crazy ingenuity, smart, genuinely well-crafted levels, it's gonna be so much better because the fact that the developers have a whole nother dimension to play with just kind of objectively means that creators will be able to make cooler levels in a 3D Mario Maker than they could possibly dream of in a 2D one. But the fact that there would be so many bad levels might stray Nintendo away from this. I mean, 3D Mario has always, and I mean always, been associated with top-of-the-line quality in level design and platforming. Giving the keys to the masses and allowing anyone to make a 3D Mario level, knowing damn well that most of these levels are going to be just not that good, in Nintendo's eyes, it might dilute the brand a little bit. I mean, again, 3D Mario is built on the fact that you know you're gonna get a banger level every single time. Well, almost at least. So it's crazy to think that Nintendo would give a bunch of random fans the ability to make a 3D Mario level, but to be fair, they kind of did a very similar thing with 2D Mario. It seemed crazy. Nintendo was taking down Kaizo ROM hacks and fan games. It seemed like they would never allow their own fans to make levels for their characters, but that was obviously wrong. We ended up getting 2D Mario, and it went from, oh, this looks like it could be a fun little tech demo, to a massive success, one of the biggest success stories on the Wii U, and one of the Switch's top-selling games. So while yes, there are a ton of reasons why Nintendo shouldn't necessarily make a 3D Mario Maker. It's gonna be more complicated than the 2D Mario Maker. It'll take more time for them to develop. It'll be harder for the fans to use intuitively. I don't think those reasons matter. Because you might not remember this, but the original 2D Mario Maker was also a complete paradigm shift, out of left field, crazy pipe dream until it got shown off. And then every single new feature or addition they added and showed off to us before Mario Maker released, it seemed like, oh, they're doing this. Nintendo's okay letting their fans make their games for them. So it's just crazy to me that people say a 3D Mario Maker would be impossible, because we felt the exact same thing with 2D Mario Maker just like under a decade ago. So yeah, to be honest, I think they should make a Mario Maker 3D version. It would do incredibly well. And while I'm assuming the levels we'd be able to craft would be more along the lines of like 3D World, relatively linear, that sort of style, I don't care, that would still be amazing. Imagine that they added in like the course world map like they did in Super Mario Maker 2's final update, and then boom, you have people making entire worlds and games in a 3D World style. That sounds amazing to me. me. Not to mention that Nintendo would probably make a bunch of levels to start off as like a campaign for this game. While yeah, there would be less good levels, there would be no shortage of them because there would be so many people buying and making levels for this game because it would just be so popular. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, but now this is the most important part. Will Nintendo do this? I don't know. I think it would be very, very interesting and very, very big for them to do, but it's also a big risk. They could easily just continue making a brand new 3D Mario like maybe every 4 or 5 years. We're kind of in a weird period because Bowser's Fury was like a half step, but still. If they make at least one new 3D Mario for every console and those 3D Marios continue to sell as well as they've been selling, then there really isn't too much of a reason for them to invest all that extra time into making a 3D Mario Maker, because I'm sure that's got to be a lot more effort. If I'm gonna be honest, I don't necessarily see it happening on the Nintendo Switch either, because as I said, I really think that this 3D Mario Maker would be more along the lines of 3D World, like that style of levels. And 3D World is already out on the Switch, and the Switch is kind of running down, you know, in its year, so I don't really see them releasing a whole new 3D Mario Maker on Switch. What I could totally see though is Switch 2 comes out, and on that we get this massive Odyssey 2 that takes inspiration from Bowser's Fury, and it's super open. And then a couple years down the line, to satisfy that more linear 3D Mario, we do end up getting a Super Mario 3D Maker game. That's the way I could see this happening, and I know people are gonna say, oh, it's impossible, but honestly, I don't think so. Again, I've said this in this video before, but the original Mario Maker seemed like such a pipe dream, impossible thing, at least to me, before Nintendo announced it. I still remember seeing that trailer before it was even called Super Mario Maker. It was just called Mario Maker, and I was like, there's no way they're actually doing this, right? But then they did, and it became a massive success story. I think there's at least gotta be a chance that Nintendo's tossing around the idea of doing a 3D Mario Maker 2. I mean, it lines up so perfectly. Mario Maker 3, oh, add a D after that, and then boom, it's a 3D Mario Maker. They're gonna want to keep the Mario Maker brand going because so many people buy those games for like the insane Kaizo difficult community made levels. But there's only so much you can add to 2D Mario Maker, especially after Mario Maker 2 and all its updates. They added so much into that game. I don't necessarily know what you could even continue adding. It seems like Mario Maker is ripe for the 3D treatment. It's definitely possible, but will it happen? I straight up can't give an answer. Nintendo's way too unpredictable and we just don't know. But what I can tell you is, oh man, I would love to see it. You know what else I'd love to see though? A brand new 3D Mario along the lines of Odyssey 2. And we just posted a video about 50 brand new captures I'd love to see in a potential Odyssey 2. It's got fun stuff like capturing Donkey Kong and capturing, oh, well, I don't want to spoil, so click the video on screen right now. I promise you'll love it.